This is Scale Her Up, the podcast for female-led businesses ready to grow to seven figures and beyond. I'm Dr. Brenda Hector, business coach and champion for women in business, on a mission to change the stats and help more women scale successfully. Each week, we share real stories, tools, and tactics to help you build a business that supports the life you want. Follow the show and come join our Scale Her Up Facebook community. You don't have to do this on your own. Today, my guest is Emma Kirk from User Vision. Emma, thank you so much for joining me on the show.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm delighted to be here.
It's great to have you. We'll start, same as I start with every guest. Tell me about your business. What do you do at User Vision?
Okay. User Vision's specs and accessibility consultancy, and we've been helping organizations create better digital experiences for 26 years this February.
Congratulations, 26
Thank you.
years.
I know, it's a long time. A lot of hair dye has gone into that 26 years. We use research-led insight to help our clients understand their users' real needs and design services that work for everyone, including people with disabilities. So we've worked with over 350 clients globally, from people like Emirates Airline to the NHS in multiple sectors. And we're really passionate about bringing humanity to design and creating services that are both commercially successful and genuinely inclusive.
Can you give me an example? Is there an example of where there's been a problem and you've worked on it and the solution and the results the customers had? Just
Hundreds.
pick one.
I guess my response to that would be that it doesn't really matter whether you're a very small business or an incredibly large global FTSE 100 business. All of those organizations struggle sometimes with actually thinking about how to design things inclusively. And the reason I see that happening most often is time and budget. So when I came to digital all those years ago, when it started, and it's still quite pervasive now, suddenly digital was fast. We can do things quickly. Here's a leaflet, let's put it online and expect that leaflet's going to work in exactly the same way as it did if I was sitting at home having a cup of coffee, reading it. It's not. It was all about, right, let's quickly do this, let's quickly do that, let's get it all there. And there was often very little thought to the context of use or the end user who's actually got to do something with that. And there was also this wonderful rose-tinted view that people would just come to your site because they loved you and look around and search for things and just spend hours there. Of course they don't. People have intent. People go, especially now when it's so pervasive, to do particular tasks that they need to do. And what we typically find is if people aren't thinking right from the beginning how to design inclusively for all audiences, for all human variability, then they're missing out on massive chunks of the public. They're missing out potentially on huge chunks of money that they could be making by making things inclusive. So it's about thinking about it from the start. And I would say a lot of our clients over the years have struggled with that. Some still do. Some have teams that look after that specifically, and that's fantastic to see. But it's taken quite a long time for that message to get across. And I would say it's still very much an active message that we're giving. And we can probably get into it later, but there's a lot of rules and regulations that now support some of that as well. Things like the European Accessibility Act, for example, and the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. It's becoming more pervasive, which is fantastic. But I would say it's not an issue that is just for some. It's still a big issue for many organizations to really wrap their head around. And to be honest, it's quite a big cultural change for many of those organizations too, to actually think about having advocates who lead and demand accessibility and good user experience for everybody are put in place so we can do what they need us to do.
So are we talking about websites and marketing material and platforms that people buy through and like all digital aspects of a business then? It could
All
be
digital touch points.
yeah.
All digital touch points, yeah. It could be a kiosk. could be an app on your phone, it could be a website. And we have to remember as well, we're all busy people. We're in the office sometimes, some of us. We might be on a bus, bumping around, looking at something on our phone. Somebody might be trying to quickly purchase something online whilst holding their baby in their arms. There's so many different we're not all perfectly sitting, totally focused on one thing ever. Certainly I'm not. And I'm sure many people watching this will also feel the
Yeah.
same. We're doing this. I'm thinking of what's coming next. You probably are too. There's a myriad of things going on, aren't there? We also have to pay attention to the fact that we need to be able to capture people's attention quickly, make it easy for them to understand this is the place you need to be, this is what you can do, and here you are. Here's a really easy way to do it, no matter what that touch point is.
So I see it myself as a business coach. I'll suggest something to a business owner, like, why don't you try this? And they go, oh, I don't like that platform. Because they don't like the platform, they assume that their customers don't like it either. So that like getting them to think differently about, it doesn't matter if you don't like it, it's about your customer and how they would like it. And their ideal customer could be very different from them as a person. So that's one aspect, isn't it?
It's a aspect, actually, Brenda, and there's always an issue. I've worked particularly in consultancy for many years, but I've also worked client side as well. And of course, today I work with a lot of clients who are in exactly the same situation I was in previously. And I think when you're client side, or in fact, in any business, it's very easy, very quickly to get sucked into that way of thinking. And that's good because you need to understand that organization. If you're designing products and services, you'll know that you've got budget restrictions, you've got timescales to meet. There might be legacy systems you're building on, which maybe restrict some of the things you can do. There might be some branding guidelines that were set up, free web, that are not accessible. For example, color contrast is a key thing there. You could have a really beautiful logo and color scheme that doesn't work online because it doesn't have the affordance to actually show up properly. All these kind of things. You've got all these expectations and limitations and assumptions. We know our customer. Yes, we've done a big survey, or we get often what a lot of people use are various scores that tell them, sort of customer satisfaction scores that say, yes, everyone's happy. No, everyone's unhappy. What do you do with that? How do you measure it? What you have to do is stop making assumptions. Stop thinking that everybody is you. Stop thinking you know it unless you really do. And how do you know it? Ask them.
Yeah.
You have to involve your customers, whether they're internal, they could be colleagues, or external, and that could be just the public. It could be really specific groups. We've worked with doctors, we've worked with architects, we've worked with politicians, we've worked all kinds of people can be the customer, the end user. But if you don't engage them in what are you looking for? How do you use this? How often do you use it? How important is it to you? What are the things that matter? What do you use that might be similar and better? Who else do you use? All these kind of things you need to pull into the mix to really get a rich theme of understanding around who you are building your products and services for and how best to meet their needs in a way that supports what you as an organization are trying to do.
And I guess there's the demographics of the people that you're aiming for, and then there's their styles and traits. We talk about people who like to learn by visual learners or auditory learners or people that learn by doing. So how you're communicating with each of them. Then maybe there's also neurodiversity, and I've been doing a bit of research lately into ADHD, understanding how diverse people interact with are these the things that you're looking at?
They absolutely
Yeah.
are. And in fact, we've actually over the past year been running training for some of our clients, helping them understand specifically on the point of neurodivergence, how to research with people who are neurodivergent, how to even, when people maybe come to your office or your environment, wherever that may be, it could be an airport, it could be whatever, how to make sure that they know where the safe spots are. Where's it going to be massively crowded, hugely noisy, overwhelming for certain reasons? Where can they go that help them calm themselves down? Are they going to be stuck in a massive queue right next to a loud, smelly canteen area? Could that be setting up visual diagrams, setting up information that can help people really understand, how am I going to cope with this setup so that they're prepared, that they understand what they need to do? So, yes, looking at accessibility in all its vagaries and is really key. And I guess the other thing, just to that point, is we have to remember that I think often when we talk about people who have a disability, there's a lot of people just immediately jump to, oh, it's people who can't see. No, that's a huge number of disabilities. And also some of them are situational. So it could be, for example, I break my right arm. I can't use my mouse because I just can't use that arm anymore. It's in a cast. So I might suddenly need to start tabbing through my keyboard to navigate a website. Now, that's a very common thing for certain disabilities. If you haven't set up your website in a way that when I'm tabbing through, I'm getting things in the right order or even getting things at all, I can't do anything. It's little subtle things like that we have to think about. Now, I may luckily recover from that, and then I'll be back to using my mouse and I won't think about it again. But there's situational, there's permanent, there's context of use, there's all the variability of us wonderful humans. But we have to, if we don't even think about it, if we just think everybody's me, we're going to be far off what we actually need to be delivering. And as I said, it makes huge commercial sense to think about how you really do design experiences and services and products that meet the needs of people rather than meet your commercial goal.
So, what would be the nugget then for any of my listeners, SME business owners looking to grow? What would be your advice, taking into account your expertise, to a business like that?
It's interesting. I know budget is always going to be an issue, and there's different scales of the kind of work we do. My strong advice is, and I think this is just sound business advice, if you were setting up a business, you should always check the market. Is what you're doing actually going to resonate with anybody other than you? Because sometimes you can have amazing ideas, but if you finesse them because you've had that feedback, that's going to make the difference. So at doing anything where you include an audience that you are trying to serve is best. And it could be that you do some surveys and some small focus groups, just get some people together in a room, or have an interview with a few people, just one-to-one, ask them some questions. Be careful that you don't ask very leading questions, of course. How much do you like this? Is not a good way to
Yeah.
get the truth out of anybody and totally seed something that maybe would misdirect you. But involving people somehow is key. I was in the discussion with an organization, a small business, just recently. And I won't go into a huge amount of detail about it. Obviously, they're small, they're growing, they've got an initial small amount of cash injection. They don't quite know what to do. What they've done, unfortunately, as many organizations, both small and very large, and I think we've probably all seen things in the press about things like this happening and blowing up in different organizations' faces. But they've gone away, they've come up with this idea, and then they've gone to build. This is great. Let's go and build this and see what it looks like. Because, of course, we're all excited to move from that sort of narrative to a visual. We need to see what it looks like. Let's start interacting with it. Having spent time, money, and resource, they suddenly realized, my God, this actually isn't doing what it needs to do. This isn't what we were expecting it to be. And we were having discussions about, look, don't just race away again and revise that. Ask your audience, how do you want to interact with this particular software? What is it that would make the difference between you clicking on that and valuing it and advocating for it versus looking at it on an app in this case and going, that's not going to do it for me. there's nothing compelling. It's not answering my questions. It's not delivering it in a way that's meaningful or engaging and all of those things. So they're wasting time and money racing to the finish. So my suggestion is test early, speak to people, find out what they want. And even if it is a piece of paper with a line drawing of this is broadly what we're thinking of doing, that's cheap and that's quick and that's validating. Now, ultimately, especially if you've got a bit more money and certainly if you've got way more clients and you're a bigger business, there's a whole process you should be going through. But everybody can do something very light just to get that initial feedback. And my strong advice, and I've seen it so many times over the years, do not build anything until you know those answers. It's fundamental.
Yeah, slow down and make sure you've got it right. I love,
Yeah.
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 Really good message. Thank you. I want to talk about Emma. So, User Vision has been around for 26 years. Yeah.
Yes.
Are you the founder?
Chris Rock is the founder.
And so when did you come on board?
I joined Chris about a year after he set up User Vision. And I guess there's an interesting sort of backstory there. And it's not something that over the years we've talked about that often. Certain people know. So Chris and I were together. We were in a partnership, relationship, and he moved to Edinburgh and set up User Vision. He saw a real gap in the market. His background was in ergonomics. So he'd been doing all the kind of research around cash point machines and flight cockpits. How do you make sure that people can use things, especially in those places, which isn't going to crash a plane? If you need to hit the emergency button, you know exactly where it is and you haven't hit the go into a hill button or whatever the hell these buttons are called. So his background was in ergonomics, and obviously digital was really growing, or everything was back then. Don't you remember that? And he thought, actually, we should be applying these same principles online as we do offline. And my background was in marketing and also research. And I was working in an e-commerce team in a bank at that point. And I was frustrated at points because I could see that exactly what I've just described to you. Here's a leaflet, let's put it online, job done, everybody will certainly buy everything. And of course, that wasn't happening. And I was thinking, every time I used to launch a product, there'd be some research with customers at regular points. Why are we not doing this online? Why is that different? So, although Chris and my background, we'd started in different places, there was the same common goal. Very long story short, I found myself in between jobs. I was made redundant from an agency that I was working for at one point. And I was hunting around for my next position, and I could see Chris getting really busy and also really kind of, I haven't got enough time for this. So I said, look, I'll help out in the interim because I know what you're doing and I'll get you over this hump whilst I'm looking for something else. And we started bidding for work, and very quickly we were invited to tender for a massive government department down in London in the DTI. And we went along to this pitch and they called us back in and they said, we aren't giving you this work. And we were both of us thinking, oh, that's a real shame. That would have been great. And they said, we're giving you the whole project. So at that point, I don't think either of us spoke to each other. And I remember us walking out of this building in total shock and silence. And we got all the way to the tube station at Victoria. And then we just both realized the enormity of what had happened. And we were jumping around and screaming and excited. And then we went, oh my God, what are we going to do now? Because it's just us. So we had this sliding doors moment or crossroads moment of, do we actually make a business out of this properly? Do we grow this into a proper business together? Or do we just turn around and go, sorry, we're not the people you need for this? And of course, we chose the former. And that's been really exciting. We're now married, and I guess we've built a business and a life together. And that's been thoroughly rewarding, thoroughly challenging, really tough, and really exciting, as indeed life can be. But the one thing we've always wanted to do is to make sure we're both individuals in our own right. We both have a great set of skills and experiences in our own right. And what we never wanted to be, and I think there's always this worry that we'll be the husband and wife team. That's not user vision. User vision is Chris Rourke, who's got this amazing experience and skill set, and Emma Kirk, and a whole team of people who work with us. And without them, and even over the years, we've had many people, without them, we wouldn't be here. They're the people who deliver tremendous value and insight to our clients. So that's how User Vision came about. Chris started it, I joined him, and then we have just taken it on from there.
Almost, more or less you're more or less a founder, really. I get.
Yeah.
Well, that moment then, that sliding doors moment when you're going, we've been offered this massive job and can we do it? Did you then have to find people to help you deliver it, or was it deliverable just the two of you? Or
actually, we did. We'd already been having some discussions, just really early discussions with somebody. And it was at that point we thought, actually, we really do need to take this seriously. So we had more detailed discussions and hired them, and then started looking for other people. And actually, back then, we were educating the market on what everybody was calling usability, and usually spelling wrong as well, which used to drive me mad. So we did, and still do actually, a lot of thought leadership, a lot of training, this is what it means. This is how you can benefit. This is how your audience can benefit. This is how to put this kind of stuff together. So there was a huge amount of that going on. And in doing that, I guess we gradually began to surface people who maybe had human computer interaction qualifications, psychology qualifications, those kind of things, and also ergonomics. And we built over the years a really interesting team of brilliant people, fascinating minds, real creativity, and a real desire to get under the skin of people and how to make things best as we can do for people, while supporting whatever organizations, be they public or private sector, their goals were. So aligning those two things is, to me, infinitely fascinating.
fabulous. And I love that story. Actually, I'm just thinking about this podcast is about scale and how a business would scale, and often scale comes from a decision and then we go looking for the big projects, whereas yours was the other way around. Yeah. But it's great to see that's also a route to.
Yeah. And I guess for me, over all these years, goodness, when we started together, so the DTI Small Business Service was actually that client, we set up what we called the Voice of the Customer program for them. Nobody had ever done a Voice of the Customer program. They happen everywhere now, but we set that up in government, in an organization that was really averse at that time to having any discussions with anybody, because they've got all of these ministers in charge of particular parts of that portfolio for small businesses just going, this is a really important thing, and I need 20 levels of navigation because my service area is really key. And we're like, yes, but it might be to you, but how do we bring this to people in a way that they understand how to navigate through it? That was fascinating. But we then very quickly started finding business elsewhere. I would say, I guess this has been to our detriment in some respect. We've never, over the years, had any business development people. It's just been us.
Okay.
And the majority of business we get is word of mouth and repeat business, and people moving and taking us with them. And there are companies we've worked with, like Emirates Airline. We started working with them in 2005. The NHS, and there's multiple different parts within the NHS that we've worked with since 2001.
To be fair, not enough of them, I'm thinking.
Yes, exactly. We've had incredibly long relationships with a lot of our clients. And I think that's the bit I'm really proud about. And that's the bit that, back in the day, Chris and I both got heavily involved in the research as well. And far less so now. We're obviously steering the ship, if you like, in a different way. But between what we've set up, what we have established, the people that we've also involved working for User Vision, all of that has led to some really interesting projects, fascinating clients, and really long-term relationships there that are valued by us and by them. And as a small business, I think that's a really lovely place to be. And I don't take that for granted at all. I think it's really exciting.
How big are you now? How many staff do you have?
We're still small. We're under 15 people. And actually, we've bobbled around that area for many years. And that's been a nice size for us. But we really do want to grow. I wouldn't say we're not going to be hundreds of people ever, because I don't know, quite like a smaller team where I know exactly what's happening, who's doing what, because I'm interested in how everybody's getting on, what's their career trajectory, what's happening for our clients, how can we give them more value that really benefits them? And that's difficult the larger you get. But yeah, so that's where we're at now.
What have you learned about yourself then, Emma, over the years as a business owner?
Gosh, that's a good question. I feel like I should be lying down on a couch at this point. So what have I learned? Time management and how to deal with stress, I think, are probably the two key things that stand out for me.
I can almost hear every listener going, "Oh my God, same here."
Well,
Time stress, yeah.
yeah,
It's not easy being a business owner, is it?
it really isn't. And without wanting to make it sound like quite a sob story, because it isn't a sob story, but it can be quite lonely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
My neck particularly has been on the line for the whole of that 26 years. I need to make sure that we're delivering not only what the client wants, but even some of the things they didn't realize they needed, so that they get extra value and they want to continue to work with us and they trust us and they see us as a partner. And trying to run an organization, and I was 30, in my 30s when we started User Vision. I've got life experience, but you're having to learn a lot through that process. How do you manage people? How do you handle HR issues that inevitably come up in any size of organization? How do you handle flexibility? How do you trust? And all these kind of things that you think, of course, you've got processes in place for. No, we're having to put them together as we grow and as we go. There's every day. Every day of being in school, sometimes it's, oh God, I never knew that, or I didn't realize I needed to do this. But but time management is key, especially in a consultancy. My typical working week involves understanding what's happening on projects, going out and meeting different clients and different contacts, sending and writing multiple proposals, pitching, looking at all of the sort of financial backdrop of User Vision. Are there any operations? And that's like that mental juggle is
Wearing all of those hats at the
you've
same
got
time.
to be really disciplined and also calm. There's no point getting flustered. You've got to work out the priority quickly. You've got to work out how you're going to deal with it. You've got to take as much advice and evidence as you can in those relative situations to make sure you can make the right decision, and never be afraid to ask. I think that's a key thing. Always get the fact, always understand, get under the skin of it. And don't be afraid to be the person who says this, and then everybody goes, but these are the 20 reasons why that's wrong. Okay, now I understand. Never be afraid of that. Be open, be listening and receptive. So I think that's really important. And I've learned, I don't think I've ever been a really panicky person in my life. I think I've always been generally, okay, here's a massive issue. How are we going to get over that? What's the route? Round, through, under, whatever. How are we going to get to the other side of it? That's not to say that I've never been flustered, that I've never been upset. Obviously, I'm human. But that's my sort of, I think those are the things that I have honed better and better over the years. So yeah, time management. And 10 years into User Vision, I had my daughter.
That throws a whole new set of challenges into.
It really does. It really does. This wonderful concept of maternity leave is very different when it's your business. And there were points when we were going through a rebrand when my daughter was born. I always remember going to, I think she was about a month old, going to our office, meeting my team and this branding agency who'd come in, and they were sat at the end of our board table, presenting all these different concepts and ideas. And Olivia was in her carry cot, and I had a sock puppet on my hand. So below the table, I'm keeping Olivia entertained with a sock puppet and various toys, and occasionally looking down and making sure she was okay. And above the table, redesigning User Vision's branding. There's all kinds of moments there. But I guess you add into the mix of time management and don't be stressed, a child, and actually that really does change things. Because to me, user vision is so important. It's our life, it's our livelihood. And what we do impacts millions of people all over the world. If we get that wrong, we've really impacted people negatively, and we never want to do that. But who's the most important out of all of that? Olivia. So I never want Olivia to feel compromised by what I do. So what that means is I'm always here for her. I have to be as present as I can be. And as she's got older, she understands. She sits at one end of our kitchen table doing her homework, and I'm sat at the other end doing my work. And we chat, and I'll help her. But we're both able to do that. When she was younger, that wasn't possible, obviously. The minute she would go to bed, laptop back on, and catch up on all the things that I couldn't do in the day. There's that huge juggle, and you just don't switch off in that sense. It's tough. Have I enjoyed it? Absolutely. Would I say it was brilliant all of the time? No. It's real life, isn't it? That's what it is. It's a juggle.
And what would you say to someone coming behind you, looking at starting or looking at growing a business? What would be your advice to a woman doing that?
Be brave, be confident, believe in yourself. I think a lot of what I have to do now is inspire people to understand what we do and how that truly benefits them and their end users. I have to have a lot of confidence in the way I deliver that message. And I do, because I not only firmly believe it, I see the benefit of what we do every single day, of what my team produce every single day, and the interactions we have. So it's not difficult to have confidence and belief in that. But sometimes, and way back, I've been in meetings with literally a room full of men, 20 or 30 men, and I'm having to stand there and try and pitch an idea that they probably don't really understand yet, because they don't really get it. So you're having to think about the best ways to do that. But it has to start with your belief in yourself and your ability to do that. And if you can go in and command that room and get people to believe in you, that's, I think, the biggest and most important step. And I think that it's incredibly hard. And I've had, and I'm sure many people who are watching this will have had situations where they feel on the back foot, or they feel minimized in some way because they're a woman. They don't feel that they're taken seriously.
Yeah.
And I think my advice is, as much as you can, and it's not always easy, but push back at that. Equal. And certainly what I know from my experience, even over all of those years, I know stuff that really can help. So if I believe in it, then that's got to come across. And I think that's probably that internal conflict that we sometimes have. I don't know about this.
Have you suffered from imposter syndrome at all?
I have occasionally. I think particularly earlier on in my career, which I think is fair, because we're all still finding out about ourselves.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think I have. And I guess I'm a bit feisty. So it then annoys me if I felt that way. So I then come out of that situation and think, how would I handle that differently? How did I handle it? What can I learn from that? So I have to go through some kind of mental discussion with myself to try and come through the other side of that, so I can improve, so I can become better. I guess it's about not necessarily not taking no for an answer, but it's not allowing that experience to then derail me in any way. It's not allowing that to define me. No, this is what I bring. This is who I can be. And it's showing up to that and belief that helps. When many years ago, again, before we had Olivia, we started looking at working in the UAE. And I must say that's been an interesting experience. Obviously, we work with a lot of clients over there, but particularly Emirates. But when we were going out, literally trying to develop business over there, we went on, can't remember what it was, some DTI scheme where you trade mission kind of thing, and you've got interviews lined up. And I don't know if you've been to Dubai, Brenda, but they don't have postcodes. Traveling around, you're in a taxi and the taxi driver will just drop you in the middle of a sandy area with a whole row of buildings go, it's over there somewhere. So you're a female alone, pretty much in a desert, trying to find the people you're supposed to meet. And I had 3 meetings where people were there, but they didn't turn up. And I kept saying, look, I have other meetings to go to. You're treading a fine line of, I don't want to offend, but I'm also busy.
Yeah.
I'm important too. So if you can't make it, let me know and I'm off. But it felt very controlling. Oh no, I'm the big, powerful person. And then sometimes they'd turn up and there'd be no apology. It was almost like you were an annoyance to them and sitting there, and you knew that what you were saying was just falling on deaf ears. So there's been some really bizarre situations. I must just caveat that with it wasn't like that everywhere, obviously. Those kind of things can really erode your confidence. I remember coming out of one day where 2 of those happened in one day, and you're just like, God, how can I overcome that? How can I do better in that situation? And sometimes you just can't, because it's out of your control. There's different cultural experiences there and different views. So yeah,
But I
sometimes
guess
you have
if,
to
if
spend
you
on the
allow it,
job.
if you allowed it to knock your confidence and think, oh, everybody over here is going to be like this, then you're not going to perform as well. You're not, if you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're probably
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
It's a
So
mindset thing. Yeah.
you're absolutely right. And I think it was a case of, at the end of the day, because Chris was over there as well, we'd both hop in a taxi separately, then come back at the end of the day and compare notes. But it was very much a kind of, what could I have done? What happened? What could I have done in advance or then? And some of them you have to just chalk it down to, I really couldn't. But tomorrow's a new day and let's plan for that. So yeah, different experiences.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great experiences for you to share, though. I really appreciate it. Emma, we're running out of time. I could talk to you all day. There's loads of questions that I haven't asked. Is there anything that I should have asked? Anything that you want to add to the conversation?
That's hard to answer. Do you have burning questions or sort of key things that people regularly want to know when you speak to people on your podcasts?
One question that I haven't asked that I would like to know actually is who's been your supporter? Because yeah, it's tough, it's lonely. Obviously, you've got the pair of you together building it, but where else have you gained support
Yeah,
to drive it forward?
well, I'm really lucky in ways in that. And I think it's a really important question, that one. I think for anybody starting any business or scaling up a business, you really do need support. You cannot do it on your own, and you've got to understand your limitations as well. I would have to say that my biggest support has been Chris, because we're in it together. We've learned to be each other's sounding boards. We've also had to learn the discipline, especially since Olivia, and I would say that we probably didn't learn it before Olivia, to not bring it to the dinner table.
I'm
We have to
surprised that you.
try and have some boundaries. And when it was just the 2 of us, that was impossible because we were pretty much working from 8 in the morning till 10 or 11 at night, almost 7 days a week, because it was exciting and it was our business and we were growing it and we had opportunities. You can only can only do that for so long. But we really do now, as much as we can, have a discipline of trying to think of the context of where we're having those discussions and trying to keep it out partly of our home life. And I guess other places early on in user vision, again, pre having our daughter, I guess we both found that because we were in it together and it was just us, we were probably not operating in the most efficient way and having an outside view would be really helpful. And we were very fortunate. We used to do all sorts of networking events, and we met this wonderful man, Tino Nombro, who at that point was in a similar kind of business. He was a founder of an organization called Amber Green here in Edinburgh. And we used to meet him at networking meetings. And occasionally the three of us used to go out for a beer and just, how's business? What's happening? And at one point I said to Chris, I really think we could learn a lot with Tino. He knows enough about us and our business to get it, but he's not close enough, he's not in it, that he can't bring other pieces of advice that are aligned. And God, I can't remember how many years ago, 15, 16 years ago, it must be at least, he joined us as a non-exec director, and he's still with us today. And my goodness, the advice and help and support he's given us through the myriad of highs and lows during that time period has been phenomenal. We can't thank him enough for that. He's been incredible. And the people he's introduced us to support us in different decisions we've had to make throughout that journey, especially recently, again, have just been incredible. So I think between Chris and Tino, I feel amazingly lucky to have both of those people. And I feel truly supported in that sense. And I really do think, no matter who it is, find somebody who's an external voice, because it can just give you that different perspective. It can open your eyes to a different way of thinking. It can bring some other experiences that maybe you can think, how does that play out for me? Could I benefit from that? How do I evolve that in my business? So for me, that's been fundamental, actually, not only to helping me, but keeping my sanity.
I'm really glad I asked the question, because I can now say myself as a business coach, that's what I bring to a lot of my clients. So thank you for the opportunity for adding that pitch in.
It wasn't set up.
Yeah, Emma, thank you so much. It's been lovely to hear your story, and lovely for you to share what you do in advice to our listeners, and also to share how you've done it for our listeners to learn from you as well. So yeah, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you. And I must say, it's not often I get a chance to do this. So in some ways, it's been quite a cathartic experience to think about that, and it's given me an even more renewed interest in everything I do. And it's been just really lovely talking to you. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. And thank you to you for listening to Scale Her Up. If you enjoyed this episode, follow the show and leave a review, because it helps more female business owners find us. Come and join our Scale Her Up Facebook communities to get support, accountability, and connection with women who get it. And remember, only 1 in 3 UK entrepreneurs are female, and men are still 5 times more likely to scale their business beyond £1 million in turnover than women. When we start and scale our businesses to the same extent as men, we'll add £250 billion to the UK economy and create millions of jobs. Ladies, you can do it, and your business can make a massive difference.